Hi there. I am creating now a part two to Ascension with A Course in Miracles, which was transmitted today. And I offered the 10 basic understandings uh, about A Course in Miracles, 10 basic pieces of information that we have to get from A Course in Miracles if we want to make sense of politics. And frankly, if we want to make sense of anything in the world. But today, the big topic is politics. So I'm doing this part two to bring those 10 basic understandings and narrow it down into the world of politics. Now, this is a list that was transmitted through me. And when I say transmitted through me, it's the consciousness of God, Jesus, Source, just flows through me during those Wednesday episodes. And today we had episode 172. If you want to watch more of these episodes, then you can find them all on my YouTube channel. But this will be part two to episode 172, because those 10 basic principles, basic understandings that God is everything, that our purpose is to be happy, and we need to train our mind into understanding how do we go from being all that is with God and then having this human experience and separating ourselves, basically having the experience of separation. We can't separate from God because we're in God. So there's nowhere to go from that which is all that is. However, inside the mind of God, we have an experience of separation, and that creates our human experience here on planet Earth. What has happened on planet Earth is that the ego has decided it is in charge. It is its own authority. But through the process of conditioning, we have been, for thousands of years, been trained into believing that actually authority is outside of us, including God out there somewhere, versus us being in God. And in putting God out there, which religion has played a big role in that, we've also made government in charge, medical establishment in charge, education systems in charge. And we have placed mother, father, teachers, preachers, everybody as our authority, in God's way out there on a cloud somewhere. And in doing that, we have bought into this illusion, not only that we're separate, but that we have to take sides, and one side is right and the other side is wrong. And if I want to get what I want, then I need to win the election. If I don't win the election, then I don't get what I want. When that couldn't be further from the truth, because we're creators of our own reality. And when we understand what the Course is teaching us, then we understand that we have created this reality, and nothing is out of order. However, while we're in the midst of suffering because we didn't get our way, or we are gloating because now we are going to get our way and we get to punish those who hurt us before or affected our experience before, both of those sides, which are victim and bully aspects of the ego, that's how the ego shows up. Only in those two ways, when we're completely operating from our lowest possible frequencies, we are in that victim bully mode. And these elections that we just had, where President Trump has won again, are highlighting the victims and the bullies on both sides. And also, they're showing us very clearly those who have risen in many ways above that victim bully mentality and are moving into service for the greater good of all. So let me use some of my posters to show how it is that we can best utilize A Course in Miracles to navigate politics. And like I said, this applies to everything. So one of the first things that we need to understand, of course, is our placement in the cosmos. We are an aspect of God expressing itself on planet Earth, but we're part of something that is connected to the whole of the universe of universes, to all of the cosmos. Now, a mind that knows that is a mind that is in a very expanded level of consciousness. But because we, little by little, as we go through different lifetimes, we limit the amount of information of the truth of what we are. We limit that information, so we operate with a very small amount of information. And then we go through this process of attempting to make a journey back to that truth. So we have to go through steps of learning, but it's really remembering the truth of who we are. So I have created this chart, which focuses on the map of consciousness that is shared with us through the book Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins. So when we get that we are pure consciousness, pure energy, and we understand that the tighter and intenser, the tighter our information is, so meaning the less knowledge of truth that we have, the denser it feels, the heavier it feels, because we feel all alone and just separate from the truth. So we operate at a low frequency, and there is a level of shame and guilt that we feel. Course in Miracles tells us that we have 4 obstacles to peace, and one of them is the guilt that we have betrayed God, that we have separated from God. So when we have all of this understanding and we practice those 10 understandings as our lived experience, and we embody that truth, then we can look at politics from this way. This is how I navigate politics, and frankly, everything else. I look at the characters and I pay attention, where are they in their consciousness? And the only way that you can tell is you listen to what they say, you look at what they do, and you have a feeling, because we're all connected. Once you know that God is, and all is God, meaning I'm God, so are you, so is every single candidate, winners or losers, it doesn't matter, past candidates, future candidates, we're all one. When you can tap into vibrationally how that candidate feels to you, then you can assess where you know they're coming from. And it's a knowing that you experience. Nobody teaches us this. As a matter of fact, humanity, especially through the Department of Education and through religion and through government, have done an incredible job at teaching us that we can't do that, at making it so that we don't tap into those abilities that are innately part of who we are. So when I look at a candidate, be it Kamala, be it Trump, be it somebody who is going to be operating in their cabinets and positions of power, Elon Musk or Obama or Bill Gates or whomever it might be that has been involved in positions of leadership, I take what they say. I listen to what they say. I scan. Does that feel true to me? Does that feel authentic to me? And then I listen for something that's very clear that allows me to separate things into two categories. Are they coming from service to self, which is the ego, or are they operating in service to the greater good, which is from their soul? Now, when I take that and I make that assessment, it just makes it super easy to do the rest, to really understand and apply A Course in Miracles to what's happening in politics. When we recognize that there are people who are going to move through a process, what Dr. David Hawkins calls the map of consciousness, they are going to be calibrating at different levels of consciousness. To be able to move into the levels of the higher frequencies, you must be somebody who moves through the process of pride. But you have to understand that pride used by the ego is all service to self. It's about, look at me, how amazing I am. And the other one is pride, service to the greater good, which is our soul, which says, I deserve better. I deserve for things to be way better. One who is aligned with pride in service to the greater good does things for the greater good, has the pride that says, I deserve better, and so do my brothers and sisters. That is someone who operates in a team, who operates in transparency, because it's doing it for the betterment. It doesn't have anything to hide, hardly anything to hide, because it's doing things for the greater good. So it wants the greater population to know what it is doing, because it is for their good. So therefore, they will eventually buy into that if they're calibrating at that frequency of recognizing the teamwork. So as I'm observing what's happening with Trump and Kamala, what I was noticing is most people didn't really pay attention to what was happening behind the scenes when they were operating from their ego, and they were being in service to themselves. They were focusing on what they were being told by the talking heads that they were listening to, pretty much the media. When they were going to the media and they were hearing information about Trump from a media that was focused on feeding the supporters of Kamala, they were pretty much instigating hate Trump. These are the bad things that he has done. These are the things that are terrible about him. That he's a Nazi, that he's a homophobe, misogynist, racist, all of those things. So this side is being influenced by talking heads, which made it easy to understand why they would hate Trump. The energies of hate operate in very low frequencies because they come from a place of fear that is projecting on another. You are standing in the way of my safety. You are going to keep me from being happy. You're going to keep me from all the things that I want to experience. That mindset is very easily manipulated because it's a victim mindset. So then that mindset turns into, or is easily turned into a very vicious mindset. And we're watching that since the election. The people who hated Trump, who are just absolutely have become vile in the things that they're doing to other voters who happen to vote for Trump. And that just shows that they're in a very immature mindset. Their minds were manipulated because they don't understand that hate and anger are reflections of ourselves. We need to do the inner work to address that. At the same time, those who supported Trump, who happened to be listening to the talking heads that were saying that Kamala is evil and Biden is evil, and these are all the terrible things that they're doing, they were also not operating from their highest self, their soul self. They were being fed information that had them, when the election was complete, become bullies. We're going to take revenge. We're going to shame you. And there are quite a few people out there who are really intelligent, have wonderful positions where they get to speak to millions of people. They are just as vile as those on the other side who were projecting their victimization. These are projecting their bully energy. Now, we need to understand that the bully and the victim energy come from the same place. It's the same frequency. It's two sides of the same coin. So anybody who is gloating, anybody who is feeling like, oh, now I got revenge, is operating from a place of feeling also that they were victimized, that the last 4 years they were victimized. They didn't get their way. Now they get to take revenge. That energy keeps people doing the same thing, expecting different results, which is, of course, insanity, which is what the two-party political system is all about. So when you apply Course in Miracles to politics, you see that the two-party system supports something that the Course says is very egoic, and we need to mature and grow up and stop. And that is, the two-party system is about specialness. This party is special to me, this party is special to you. And it is understood, like in a football game, that we're going to battle each other. And there's going to be a Super Bowl called elections, and then I'm the winner and you're the loser. Or you're the winner and I'm the loser. That energy is an energy of competition, of using the 4 years in office or 8 years, depending on re-election, to get my way. Again, service to self. I got to get my way. So when I look at the current political state from that lens, it is very easy to observe how Donald Trump's understanding or Donald Trump's promises, things that he's been talking about now for well over 8 years, because he started campaigning, I think it was 2014, 2015, and then he won the election 2016 to 2020. So he had 4 years in office and maybe 2 years campaigning before that. What he is showing us this time around is that the two-party system does not work. It goes against God's principles of oneness, of inclusivity. And it goes to showing that when we bring together people who might have considered themselves this group versus that group, we can actually co-create. We literally can create more things. When we pick one party versus the other party, it's all about what we get to win. When we move into this is the best possible team to represent all of Americans, then we are moving into a place where we're really looking at the greater good of all, not just, I got to have my party win the Super Bowl or my team win the Super Bowl. That is a much more mature way of looking at things. When you can see past your emotional reactions because you have dealt with them, meaning you're looking at whatever you believe about Trump, if you put him on a pedestal, that's because you're not honoring your higher self. You're not honoring your greatness. You think he's great, so you're going to support the great person. It's still coming from a place that I need that one to save me. When you're projecting your hate on him and he's going to make my life miserable, you're projecting on him this specialness that you're not acknowledging within yourself, which is you get to make your life great. So it's still operating in many ways with that very patriarchal, egoic victim needs a male savior to come and take care of me. One of the things that became very clear is that many were projecting on Kamala, you be my mommy, you take care of me, which is very normal for children to seek out that maternal, loving connection, nurturing. And many felt like children that they've been ripped away from their mommy and they've been put in daycare now, and somebody else is going to watch them all day long while mommy's at work. So there's a sense of being separated. There's a sense of being unloved and uncared. Some people may be projecting anger towards Kamala. Why didn't you do enough to win this election? There are so many things that are happening right now because humanity, frankly, we have not been taught how to deal with our inner world. We have been conditioned to look to the outer world for satisfaction, for happiness, for fulfillment, for safety, for freedom. These elections are, if you can be an observer, if you have done the inner work, that you can stand grounded and paying attention to what's happening, you will not have reactions, but rather what you will have is the ability to see exactly where each candidate is in frequency. As I did that with the two parties, I could see very clearly that Trump's consciousness is higher than Kamala's. Now, does Trump have an ego? Absolutely. Does Kamala? Absolutely. Do both of them have a higher self? Are both of them expressions of God? Absolutely. So when you move to a place that you can recognize both sides, now there's nothing to judge because you recognize both are characters. They're playing roles inside of this entire experience we call human existence. From that place, you can begin to hear what they are saying, not through a talking head like in the news, not through somebody else's interpretation, which the ego loves to get somebody else's interpretation, because then at the end of the day, you don't have to take responsibility for your own thinking. You're just doing what you're told. And we're going to experience, a lot of people are going to get very mad, very angry when they find out how much they've been lied to on both sides. That's a natural part of evolution. Now, many people are not going to use what is happening as an opportunity to heal their own insecurities, because that's what these elections are bringing up. Those who are insecure and those who are more confident. When you look at this, insecurity is a low vibration. To have confidence, you need to have worked through your anger, move into a place of pride, and you're rolling up your sleeves and doing what is in the greater good of all. That requires courage, because you're going against people bashing you again on both sides and canceling you out and censoring you, because you are speaking from a place of courage that cannot be bought, a certainty that cannot be dissuaded. You are connected to something that transcends that which can be manipulated. To move to that level of courage, you cannot help but begin to do things that are obvious for the greater good of all. It's not about what you're going to get out of it, even though that's going to happen. You're going to be compensated, you're going to get a salary, or your stocks, your personal business is going to increase, you're going to get invited to do things. That's all well and good, and it should, because that's part of the game that we play here. But what becomes really clear is what you are willing to do for the greater good. It also highlights people who are willing to be transparent. They don't have anything to hide, because when you're in service to the greater good, there's no selfishness, and selfishness, greed, always has to be hidden. You don't want people to see that, because the ego always puts on a mask. Well, this is what I'm going to do for you. Don't see what I'm doing for me. This is why politicians who enter politics and become entrenched in the system and become career politicians, the only reason they don't leave is because they're doing things for themselves. And we see story after story after story. These are facts that you can go look at, which, by the way, is a way that somebody who's operating with spiritual maturity looks at facts, looks at things that are happening in this world as the facts in this world, even though we know that what happens in this world doesn't affect the cosmos. It doesn't affect God's truth. God's truth is going to be God's truth no matter what. But somebody who's courageous, operating in the frequency of soul pride and courage, are operating with facts. They're not emotional. The emotional part is a low frequency, which is an immature person. It's very either at the very beginning of their spiritual journey, or they may not even know that they're on a spiritual journey, or still inside of doing their spiritual work, but being at a place that I call the spiritualized ego, that only wants love and light and only what's good, but still not operating with facts, still reacting, still utilizing spiritual principles to judge, and still utilizing their awareness to make themselves victim and to make themselves justify their fears. But as you begin to step back and observe what is happening, utilizing facts, you can begin to see those who are doing things that benefit them by the way they stay in that treadmill, that never-ending treadmill, I guess I'll call it for lack of a better word, of being entrenched career politicians, and they get out of one side over here, they move to the other side over here, whether it be lobbying or something. They stay inside of the loop that ensures that their interests will always come first. Because you see, politicians, the way that our founding fathers created our republic was so that we, the people, would go serve for a short period of time, come back and live under our own laws and regulations. And if they didn't work for us, then somebody would go in there and change them. If they worked for us, well, we keep them and we move on, and somebody else comes in and adds to it and makes it better. But there was a checks and balances, because you had to live under your own rules. We don't do that today, because career politicians enter into politics, usually without having had much money. Many didn't even have businesses. And then they begin to accumulate and they come out on the other side wealthy. How can you become so wealthy with such a average salary for many people, and supporting families and sending kids to college? How can that happen? Well, it's very clear to see, again, if you look at the facts. And if you're willing to put emotions aside and you go look at facts, you begin to see those who took advantage of their positions to enrich themselves and enrich those who supported them, which is why we have to get money out of politics, versus those who went in already self-made, which we're seeing a lot of them entering into or a part of the Trump team, already self-made, willing to put their riches aside, take on a small salary for them, peanuts compared to what they're used to making in the hundreds of millions yearly, and because they're worth billions, but doing it because they're serving others. And again, if they benefit from that, that's wonderful. When you use A Course in Miracles as a lens through which to view politics, everything becomes very, very simple if there are no emotions involved, because emotions are the realm of the ego. They are necessary on our journey because that irritation is an invitation to see the ego's motivation. But those who are operating from emotions, who are angry, who need a savior, who need a mommy or need a daddy, are operating from a very immature place of woundedness. Now, these are not conversations that we have in the general public. These are not the kinds of things that are being talked about that much, but they will be, because humanity has been deliberately kept unaware of how powerful we are, how important it is to understand about our energy, to understand frequency, to understand, frankly, that you are an expression of God, that every single person matters, that every single human deserves to be heard and deserves to be protected, especially when they are children. Until we get to that age of adulthood where we frankly, nobody can tell you what to do, we deserve and need somebody who is going to take care of us. But as we become adults, old enough to start voting, we need to stop looking for mommy and daddy to take care of us. And humanity has been kept in a very immature state of beingness frankly, by design. When you begin to look at how did we get to this position, then why Trump won begins to make a whole lot of sense. You see, humanity is evolving. We are going through a big leap in evolution. But in this leap of evolution, we still have free will. And when you step back and you can see the bigger picture, when you have moved to a place where you are not operating from your immature human egoic self, and you have ascended within your own self to operating from an awareness of who you are as a child of God, what begins to happen is you can see very clearly that this spiral of consciousness is an example. It's a very clear example of the evolution of humanity. As souls who incarnated, we spiraled down into the third dimension. We came down from a higher frequency, meaning we chose to forget who we are, be born, be trained by other humans who had been here before we were, and then we accept their limitations as our own. But what is happening? We're in the midst of a shift in consciousness. And those who can see clearly through the game, who are no longer reacting from drama, which means that they're no longer immature, acting like immature children, but they have come to a maturity, they can see that we all create our reality and are choosing to make all of their decisions with facts at this human plane that allow for the expansion of consciousness of all, showing truth to everybody, no more secrets, no more lying, nothing to hide, because they're deliberately setting up the reality that they're going to experience. The Course in Miracles calls that a happy dream. So when you're not being emotional, you are being rational. And now you are deliberately creating a world that you are going to live in, you're going to incarnate into, if you choose to, where the things that you value at that level of frequency, integrity, an understanding of God, a love of God, transparency, greater good for all, collaboration, cooperation, communication. When you value those things, you are setting into motion that as your reality. Now, I'm not going to get into the metaphysics of things or the quantum physics of things, but everything is operating at the same time. All that is operating at the same time. So in this world that we live in, we have people operating at high frequencies, medium frequencies, lower frequencies, and very low frequencies. But we're at a point, call it the Great Awakening, the age of Aquarius, where we are going to be shifting timelines. If you understand this, but you have to become mature to understand that. An immature, bratty child that is selfish and only wants to have their way and have their gender be validated or their race be validated or whatever, because they're busy in the blame game, the victim bully blame game, doesn't have the maturity to understand timelines. And those who understand timelines have elected President Trump because of what he represents by the facts, not emotional, by the facts of what he is doing, not by himself, but with a team to move us into a level of freedom. And not because we need freedom given to us by the government, but because he is removing the obstacles to the freedoms that are already part of our Constitution that were placed in there, that our Bill of Rights, the documents that were created by our founding fathers. Are they perfect? No, because they were written by men and women, but they establish a reality level that is very truthful. All men are created equal. All men and women are created equal, endowed by our Creator with the same inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. When you look at the facts, the team that Trump has wants to remove the obstacles that have been built to those basic liberties. Again, endowed by God and protected by our founding fathers' documents. They want to ensure that that is something that all of us can experience. When you are immature and reacting and you want somebody to save you and you want somebody to take care of you, then you can't hear the level of responsibility that is necessary to have those be part of your reality. While we still are looking for a savior, we are then creating a timeline where we need somebody else to do that for us. So when you look at A Course in Miracles and you look at politics, it only makes sense if you've done the inner work. And let me tell you, there are a lot of spiritual teachers out there, spiritual people out there, healers, coaches, all kinds of, leaders of communities, be they, churches or spiritual living centers or unity churches that don't understand these very basic principles. They say we create our reality, but they're still believing mommy, daddy outside of them is going to save them. They're still grieving because their candidate didn't win, or they're gloating because their candidate won. Either way, it does not, it shows that they don't have the spiritual maturity that is necessary by one who has really, truly come to understand that the nature of reality is really a game. We're all playing different levels of this game, but they're all happening simultaneously. And very importantly, we're in the process of bifurcating. We're in the process of solidifying the timeline that we believe we deserve based on the level of maturity that we are at. Those who are victims and operating as victims are going to need more bullies. That's going to become their reality. Those who are operating from a level of oneness are going to be in collaboration pretty soon. By the year 2030, 2032, maybe 33 at most, we are going to appear to be living as if in two different worlds, because vibrationally we are going to be attracted. Again, this is where law of attraction comes in, but most people don't fully understand it. We are going to be attracted to the communities that vibrate at the frequency, and this is very important to understand, of freedom or of control. And right now, if you can't see which candidate is offering freedom, preserving freedom, they're not offering you freedom, preserving freedom, and which are attempting to tell you that through their control of you, you will be free, you will be safe. If you can't see that clearly, it is simply because you're still operating as a wounded child looking for mommy and daddy to take care of you. I'm going to leave this here, but I have been guided to continue this conversation to help people see more clearly the importance of understanding politics, government, understanding the education system, the medical system, through the lens of A Course in Miracles, because we're at a time where I am not here trying to convince anybody to believe this. I am here to share the truth that I know is true, because it is going to resonate with some that are on that fence and need people like me who are speaking a language that resonates with them to help them purify their angers, their resentments, whatever. They're willing to do that work because they're willing to take responsibility for them being the cause of their experience, to help them ground themselves in the timeline of liberation. Otherwise, it is going to be the timeline of control, manipulation, and suffering. But both timelines are the choice, because we have free will, of each person. Whether you're conscious of this or you're not, at a soul level, you have already decided where you want to be. And if you're fighting the changes that are coming, if you're resisting what is taking place, that's because you're grounding yourself in the old ways, which is a definition of insanity. You're going to keep getting the same thing, expecting different results. Those who want something totally different knew that they could not continue to vote for the same old, and have brought in a team. Are they perfect? None of us is perfect. On this human plane, none of us is perfect, because we all have egos. But on a soul level, can feel the frequency of the mission that these people are on, to help facilitate ushering in a new earth. You either see it or you don't. And again, if you're blaming and pointing the fingers out there, is because you don't want to come inside and find out, how did you contribute to this? Because you have brought this into your reality. And taking that responsibility is crucial to then beginning to consciously and deliberately begin the process of creating a whole new reality. I hope this helps. Come back to my other YouTube videos. Again, this one, I'm going to label this one 172 dash, maybe I'll call it part 2. I don't know what I'm going to call it, but it'll be there'll be 2 172s, the one that was transmitted earlier today, and then this that I'm adding to it, that conversation. Thank you all so much. And no, you are magnificent. You're the creator of your reality. I am going to continue to share what comes through me for those who want to create consciously. My work is not about rescuing and trying to convince somebody who is stuck in wanting to be a victim or a bully. That doesn't interest me at all. All that I'm interested in is those who have made the decision that they are ready to let go of the old and want to acknowledge their reality as a powerful creator. And that requires 100% responsibility. Love you all. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.